Good morning and welcome to the October 17th, 2022 press conference. We're glad to have you today. Hopefully you had a great weekend. It was an amazing weekend with weather. We had some great things going on here. I was sorry had to be away visiting my daughter at college, but it sounded like it was a great weekend here. I know we had the Soul Bowl, which was everything I hear, fabulous weekend event, very nice downtown, a lot of things going on. So sound like weather was great and everything was very good here. We had a couple of things last week that I wanted just to recap on that we had. We had the Crime Stoppers, Gulf Coast Crime Stoppers Award Luncheon. Two individuals from PPB were honored. Detective Joseph Teixeira was recognized by the Crime Stoppers Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award for the PPD. And retired Lieutenant Jimmy Donahoe was recognized for 25 years of service to Gulf Coast Crime Stoppers, both of whom just great recognitions of Detective Teixeira, what he did, and something that happened with somebody that was a victim of internet crime and was able to get reimbursement back for them, but other people across the country from some of the things that he did was really amazing, and I think it just goes to show I'm just impressed every day by what PPD does and the officers that we have there. This one particularly showed that there were a lot of people in a lot of communities that had been victims of crime. They would never have gotten their money without Detective Teixeira doing what he did and working very diligently on a case. So it's something to be very proud of, and I really appreciate what he's done. And of course, we all love Lieutenant Donahoe. We certainly miss him having him at the force, but it was great to see him recognized for his years of service and the things he meant. It was great to be a part of his retirement ceremony here. That's why I said if Jimmy's retiring, then I'm definitely leaving. Because he was been that great for PPD, and we obviously miss him, but it was glad for him to get recognition. Also, we had the bust for the Julian Olson dedication at Bayview Park. He was the first park director. Many of our parks and the things that are set up, he really pioneered in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and I guess he retired in the 50s. But anyways, we put a bust of him up at Bayview Park. There was several members of his family. It was great to see how many people in Parks and Rec were there. Old Parks and Rec people that are, I guess I should say, former Parks and Rec people that were there. Don't want to say they were old, but they were former Parks and Rec people that were there. It was great to see them, and it was a good event all the way around. Pensacola Fire Department, much like Pensacola Police Department, my understanding their deployment for Hurricane Ian, Police Department is back. However, the Fire Department is just now deploying. The Pensacola Fire Department engine strike team deployed to Fort Myers early this morning for Hurricane Ian recovery assistance. They will likely go to Sanibel Island with a mission of fire rescue as power is restored to hard-hit areas and increased firefighting presence is needed. So we certainly will be sending some people down to assist with Sanibel, and so certainly we put all of our assets into the state's panel, and they've assigned us. Like I said, they've brought back some of our people from police. We've redeployed some from police, but now this is our first deployment from Pensacola Fire, so I know they will be doing all they can to help. And we got some great feedback. I know Casey from some of the communities down there, some of the citizens and communities, just how appreciative they were to have PPD officers there, and I'm sure we'll get the same related to PFD. They do an amazing job. This is also a reminder of the active transportation plan input. The City of Pensacola is seeking public input to help develop a forward-thinking active transportation plan with a goal of gathering input on walking, biking, and other human-powered modes of getting around. The city is hosting two mobility fairs this week to gather information for the community. These two workshops are scheduled for Tuesday, tomorrow, October 18th, from 5:30 to 7 at the Fricker Community Center. And then we will also have one Thursday, October 20th, from 5 to 6:30 at the Tryon Library Branch. The Fricker Center is at 900 North F Street, and the Tryon Library Branch is at 1200 Langley Avenue. So the mobility fairs are an open house style, so attendees are welcome to drop in at any time during the scheduled time frame. The public is also encouraged to complete our online survey at cityofpensacola.com/active transportation. FDOT activating mid-block pedestrian crosswalks on West Cervantes Street. FDOT will activate the new mid-block crosswalks this week on West Cervantes between Dominguez and A Street. The crossings are also located between the following streets: Dominguez and Green Streets, Grandview and Wentworth Streets, Y and Z Streets, P and Q Streets, and M and N Streets. Also F and G Streets and C and D Streets. The mid-block crossings will allow pedestrians to safely cross Cervantes between the intersection and include designated pedestrian islands for the median for safe refuge. For more information, visit nwflroads.com. Also, FDOT northbound bridge over Carpenter's Creek is set to open this week. FDOT has announced that 9th Avenue northbound bridge over Carpenter's Creek is slated to open this week with 2 travel lanes in each direction that will be open. Open traffic is placed in the final configuration on Tuesday, October 18th. So tomorrow that will happen. Drivers will continue to encounter intermittent and alternating lane closures over the next month as crews place the final layer of asphalt and complete additional items. However, that will begin to solve itself. And I did want to say we had a very good meeting on Thursday with the Secretary of FDOT, who came over with his team and our Public Works team, and we had a good meeting with them. Several items were up being discussed. Again, our priorities have been, from a street standpoint, the diet that's going to be happening on Palafox, and that should be moving forward and happening in the spring of 23. We're very happy about that. We also discussed at length, what we're going to do about MLK and Davis and looking to get those two-wayed. And I do believe we're closer to a solution. It's going to take a little bit more for us to work through, but I thought we had a very productive meeting in beginning to discuss that. If you remember, probably I think it was the second meeting in September, we had a citizen come forward and talk about the number of wrong-way people that we've seen an increase in that area. There's always been challenges with speeding and a variety of other things that are there, much for the safety of the neighborhood, the safety of the drivers. We believe that both of those streets should go back to two-way and become more neighborhood streets, and we think it would be safer traffic calming for all the neighborhood. DOT is receptive, and we're just trying to figure out how to get the finalized details to make sure that if the city assumes those roads, that they will be assumed with the proper striping, all that needs to be done with traffic and traffic signals and everything else. I am optimistic that, again, based on our conversation, that will happen. It's not a question really of if, it's just a question of when. If that's fiscal year 23 or 24, we will see, but we certainly will continue to work. I will also say that Mayor-elect Reeves was in attendance. Obviously, many of these things will really spawn into his time frame, and he was very supportive of that initiative. We talked about how we had worked with. Our third initiative, obviously, is looking at Bayfront. That's probably sometime down the road. But the good news is we did discuss at length on the completion of the bridge and the working that is happening. While they didn't give an exact date, obviously we think hopefully by towards the first part of the year, hopefully we'll start seeing traffic driving across the bridge. It'll take some time, much like what we just saw about the Carpenter's Creek Bridge. It'll take some time. They'll continue to be doing work, but at least if it could begin to transition into northbound into its own separate bridge, now southbound on its own separate bridge, that would be a very good thing, and we're looking forward to that and hopefully getting that in the very, very near future. Still, there'll be a little bit more work continue to done probably in the first quarter, second quarter of 23, just on the landings and some of the other things touching up. But again, if we could certainly get traffic going, that would be a great thing to see and have beginning to happen across the Bay Bridge. So that was good. However, the number one thing that we discussed at length, and the main part of our discussion, was really the airport. We are busting at the seams, and again, the record the record numbers we have are beginning to show wear and tear on our physical plant, which we've known for some time. We've had some challenges with elevators and escalators. Again, our biggest issue is, do we go put a bunch of money into it only to rip it out in 3 to 5 years because we're doing an expansion of the overall airport? We've tried to piecemeal in hopes that DOT could begin moving forward so we could begin to really spend all that money in the alterations of a brand new plan. So we will continue to look at that. I thought we had fairly good discussions with them, hoping to get something done. I know with Senator Broxson, we certainly communicated to him. I knew he was meeting with them, and we hope that as appropriations chair, he will be making sure we're there. We had good discussions with the FAA and the federal government, and we do feel like as money is coming down over the next probably year and a half for transportation, for infrastructure, we think the city would be well positioned, but we've got to get going on that planning grant and where that is and getting that funding from FDOT. So much of our discussion was about that and getting that to happen and beginning to move forward. And we realize we right now are having challenges with our physical plant just because it's taking on so many people. But really our issue is not necessarily trying to redo everything, because we might turn around and have to change everything in only a couple of years if that's the case, and what we end up doing with the airport. So we very much are cognizant of that. We're still working on that, and we'll keep going forward. One of the other things that came out of this was the other thing with FDOT is obviously Garden Street is their street. About the same time they were here, we've been reporting for some time that we noticed there were potential gaps forming underneath Garden Street, and again, I think that why one eventually came in last week, and it was found out that it was because of ECUA issue. And if you saw last week, we had Garden Street closed at Spring Street, that intersection. Well, I did get a call Friday from Bruce Woody with ECUA indicating to me that it was more than just dealing with the road. We found out much of what was caused there was not necessarily a water erosion issue, but it was dealing with a sewer that was exposed and leaking sewer into those stormwater positions, both the DOT one and the right there at Spring and Spring and Garden is also what eventually comes into the old Washerwoman's Creek that comes down here to Bruce Beach. So both from what it sounds like at this point, that obviously is getting fixed, and we believe that may be our primary culprit. I know I got some communication from our own public works people. I got the call obviously from Bruce Woody, thinking that has potential. It was unknown that was leaking for some time, and could certainly be our potential problems that we were having in both spots. So again, we'll continue to work, but and continue to test. But we may have found our problem that was creating all of our issues at Bruce Beach, and it was very good to find out it was not known that some construction between ECUA and FDOT work that they Bruce just told me it sounded like something happened. They weren't aware of it, and over time it had created a fairly significant hole in their sewer line there. That was what was eroding underneath the street, and we're very glad that the street's getting put back, but sort of as an additional, it appears that this also may be our culprit in dealing with the issues at Bruce Beach and some of the other things that we're getting into our stormwater, and we hope that will solve it. We'll continue to keep testing, but I know I get lots of questions. Jeremy, I know you've had many questions, and it appears we may have found part of our problem. So it was good to get that fixed. And I know Bruce indicated they were already getting that fixed, so that should begin to stop some of the problems. They didn't even realize they had a problem with sewer was pouring out into it. So that was going to be good to get. That's kind of it for my items. I'm happy to answer your questions, and I'll be happy to answer any of those. Yes, ma'am.
Angela Underwood, Rare TV. So you did just speak at length about the airport and the issues at hand. However, are you concerned about ADA compliance? And I understand that you're not sure when and how much, but right now there's people that are not able to get around, and
I mean, we've. I'll let Amy. I know we've got some things back prepared, and we do have some stuff. So I'll let her say where we are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amy Miller, Deputy City Administrator. So yes, in the main airport terminal building, we have had challenges with both the escalators and the elevators. However, we have never had an instance where the elevator in the garage has been down at the same time. The ADA access is to go to the garage, take the elevator either up to the second floor and across to the terminal building straight through security, or if you're coming off of a plane, come out the second floor, across the breezeway to the garage, down the elevator, and then back into the first floor of the terminal building if you need to go to the ticket counter or baggage claim. And there are additional wheelchair attendants and baggage attendants available to folks who need extra assistance because of the distance of travel that's required there. All passengers have to do is request it either from the ticket counter when they check in for their flight or from the gate agent when they disembark their aircraft.
Okay, because I wanted to say the time to get it. What happens if they didn't make their flight because of this delay? Is there like a backup plan for the backup plan in that aspect, just in case travelers are?
I think we've done a pretty good job on the airport's website and on social media of letting folks know that they need to plan for extra travel time. And I will say, in general, they're back in the day when you flew through Pensacola, you could get to the airport 45 minutes to an hour and 10 minutes before your flight and not have any trouble. These days, whether you require extra assistance or not, you need to get to the airport at least 2 hours before your flight to be sure you're going to be on your plane. I have actually stood in line at the ticket counter for more than 40 minutes to get on a flight, so you've got to give yourself time at our airport now. It's not the same old quiet Pensacola airport it used to be, and that's great for us because that means people are coming here, and that's what we want.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, and I think that's, as I said, that's one of the challenges we've had with our success is it's created problems for us, unfortunately. But this is also why that success gives opportunity. The opportunity is for us to do the expansion. That was really most of our discussion with FDOT is making sure that we're going to get that expansion done because we desperately need it. And I think when we get that new expansion done, it could change very much how the overall entrance is done everywhere and getting new equipment. Our biggest fear is do we put all brand new equipment in only to rip it out in a few years? And so that's what we'd really like to see is FDOT and our federal partners at FAA move forward with an expansion that really that updates everything and puts it in a new situation that will allow us to have more terminal space, more gate space, more flights to really deal with and more parking, really to deal with everything that we've got right now because we're essentially, I know I was just with Matt in that meeting and he says, we've expanded our car lot and we're already full. So I mean, it's a good problem to have, but it's a serious problem if we want to deal with the issue of expansion. So, again, in 2019, we were planning to go forward with a garage, and when we came out of COVID, we really realized we need a whole new terminal expansion, and that's what we've been pushing on.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Can you kind of explain how FDOT and the FAA play into the process of an airport expansion and also detail that federal grant?
Well, again, we will have to move forward. We've got pretty good ideas of what we will. We've got right now. The biggest thing we've been pushing on is the $2.25 million for the design grant. The whole idea is to get that done to begin the design. Now we've done some temporary stuff that we've been looking at in our own plans, knowing where it would go, but we haven't necessarily put out and scoped out exactly how everything would lay out, which is what this is more taking it from a 5-year plan to actual plan of expansion. That's what that $2.25 million would do. Then we would look to go from there, and we would get some money, hopefully from FAA, some money from FDOT, and then we'd probably end up having to borrow a portion of that money. We've always known we would have to. Most airports do that in their expansion. That will be borne really by the cost of those who fly. So it would have to do that. But our whole hope and goal is that we get more. What we've seen is we'll have more flights. We'll have hopefully more airlines with more gate space, and the debt that we would borrow against hopefully would not only be able to be paid, because we know if nothing happened we'd be able to pay it, but hopefully be able to pay it even faster back because we have growth. So that would be the plan of which we would look at. But it's always been a case if we thought we could fund about half of it with money from the federal government and from the state, and then half of it from basically borrowing. That's kind of where we were in that process. Maybe not the exact percentages. Okay, so again, I think it would be a mix along those lines, and the good news is that the expansion should really allow us more opportunity. I mean, we're going to have to prove we can finance it just on our historical data. Our historical data shows pretty good right now, but if we were able to even grow beyond that, that's why the things like we did, putting the Custom and Border Patrol is certainly important. That allows us also in that expansion to potentially do international flights from a passenger level. So, I think we've got our eyes on trying to make sure that not only is your access going to be all over the world, and or at least all over certainly the Western Hemisphere from Pensacola. We certainly want to make sure that our citizens have the best opportunities available to them, but we also expose Pensacola to as many places as we can that you can get here, and that's a big part about what we're trying to do.
These maybe probably are better directed to ECUA or FF, but insofar as the work on the garden, do you know when that project was that may have initially caused this issue?
I don't know. It's been, ECUA, it's been running for a while. That's what I was told. I was told, it's been a long time since the FDOT work was done. I have no idea when that did. They don't know when it broke loose. Clearly, it started eroding it's been also eroding the soil underneath there, which that's what eventually sort of we figured out was the fact that you could potential cave in on the road on Garden. So that's what we thought we were dealing with. It shut down obviously the westbound lanes on Garden. I know they were doing the work on it and hopefully get it restored. But in this discussion, like I said before, I'd seen stuff from our staff, and then I got a call from Bruce Woody indicating that, and at least both sides seem to think that may not be everything that we're experiencing, but it sure seems like it's a big problem that we didn't realize was out there. And again, this is going to highlight what's out there. Is clearly we've got things contaminating the stormwater. We just don't know where. But this is a good proof and point that you eventually begin to find some of these things. So we're going to keep looking.
How did they find this?
Well, this was found pretty much because of the problem that was going to happen with the road. So we thought this was a road project and keeping the road from caving in, and then when they got into it, they found, oh well, yes, we do have soil coming out and everything else, but we also have it wasn't a water break, it was a sewer break.
There wasn't any they didn't suspect there may be an issue there from previous housing?
Again, we haven't gotten up that far. That's all the way up at Garden Street. We're only still down here south of Government Street. So, but again, it looks like what it feeds. Some of it will go into the DOT system within outpours on the east side of Maritime Park, and then some of it will get into the Washerwoman's Creek, and it all will come into this portion and will feed into what we've been at Bruce Beach. So basically all that stuff it's been simply a hole that's been going into there. I don't know that everything that went through that pipe came out, but certainly a lot of it did, and that's been going into those areas. So We don't know how long this is taken. It's been a long time since they've done repair work, so it could have broken at any time.
Going forward, will DOT be, brought into the process of testing?
If they have issues on their stuff, yeah. I mean, we'll do whatever we need to test on different stormwater, but it would just be a chance of figuring out where those problems come. But I think that's where it's good to figure out what you got. If you got hot spots, then to go figure out what flows into that and finding the stuff out.
I mean, it seems like this was a hot spot too. This was like random.
I mean, these are, again, Jeremy, again, this is the city taking an initiative. It's not our initiative, but ended up finding out things that end up saving the city and all of us. And so, again, from that standpoint, we're going to keep trying to do whatever we can do to find ways and solve things. So, from that standpoint, the city's going to do what they can do. But these aren't our issues. Not all of them are our issues, and we certainly expect our partners to be working with us on it.
No, I know. And the city's taking initiative. I guess I'm just asking, should the city go to DOT and say, hey, check all your connections or all the work that you have done previously to make sure?
Well, again, they're not going to check. Their system is working. What happened apparently is when they were doing their construction, they ended up impacting ECUA's stuff. So again, it was a case of perhaps when everybody's working, they need to make sure they contact everybody else. That would be good, but that happened like a long time ago. And so us to go back to that point when that construction was done, it's unfortunately it happened. We're dealing with the after effects on it. But yes, it would have been good for them to be working with that. I think we try to do a much better job now of working together. Case in point, all of this work that we've been doing has been ECUA and the City of Pensacola trying to figure out how to do this together and improve our stormwater. If we need to involve FDOT and find out that stuff going forward, we'll let that happen from there. But the city certainly is trying to do that and find solutions. But I mean, this is what happens when your stuff is underground and you don't know where everything's going and you don't control all the piping. And so the best you can do is try to work with your partners to figure out where the problems are. And this is a case in point where the city is having impact, but the impact was created by two other partners. So we would never have known. I mean, these are the challenges that you're dealing with. And I think this kind of highlights the complexity of some of these problems. But our commitment is to working with our partners to figure out whatever we need to do to solve it.
And this is again better for ECUA, but what was the damage? Can you kind of give us?
You're gonna have to. I don't know. You're gonna have to talk to them. All I know is it was, like I said, there was a bust in the pipe. It was big enough to make sure that we were having erosion coming underneath the road. That's all I know from our standpoint. You'd have to talk to ECUA about what specifically was done. And I just know that when I was hearing about it from Bruce, that's what he told me. And so he said, yes, this could have been a long-term, I mean, there could have been impacts from this for a long time that we would never have known about without this coming forward. So this is kind of some of the challenges that you deal with, but I think it's case in point where this is why you try to periodically work with your partner agencies and you keep going. And it's really tough trying to find things underground. It's like when you get a roof leak and you think it's dropping on this ceiling tile right here, but it actually is running down a seam and goes way up, and this is what can happen. And so when you can't see it, it's just a lot harder to figure out what's going on. But, I talked to Bruce. I don't think anybody thinks that this is the only thing out there. I think we're going to keep looking because there certainly could be others. If there's one, there certainly could be another one. But everybody seemed to think this is going to be a big chunk of what our problem was. I mean, you think? I mean, that's what it seemed like it was reported. No, I don't. I mean, I just need do you believe it's going to be a significant impact on what we've thought was out there?
I believe that's gonna be part of it.
Yeah.
I think there's still gonna be sourcing we're gonna need to try to hunt down.
Yeah.
Until we get to a point where, we're all comfortable that, all the infiltration has been addressed.
Yeah. Like I said, there's certainly other stuff we're gonna have to keep looking, but this was a big one, no doubt.
I have another question.
Okay.
Paddling trail report. That looked at water quality, but like part of the, have you looked at that yet?
I haven't seen it. Rick said something about it today, so,
It like looked at water quality and, I guess like access points, like quality of access points or the ability to access certain points along it. I was wondering if the city had any intentions to make those more like accessible to,
we're certainly trying to make as many new areas accessible as we can, and we'll continue to try to work along that. It just depends. It also depends on where things are and where those access points and what happens with the public. I mean, case in point, things that happened in the Cordova Park on Bars Park, and then the decision was made, well, no, people don't want access there, so you don't have that'll really depend on what the future. I mean, there are a lot of factors that weigh into that, and a lot of it is community need and it's community desire from those neighborhoods. So it's just a kind of a work in progress. You'll always be evaluating those things. But I do think we have a number of boat launches already. Some of those have kayaks. Some of the places we intend to put kayak launches in different parts. So we're working through all that. Well, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you next Monday. Oh, I guess I didn't say anything about this. I'll have one of these books for all of y'all next time for the press. Certainly here, if you get a chance to get one. We started doing this a couple of years ago. An intern came up with this idea for us to do these budget books, and a couple of years ago we did one, and I just saw this just today before coming down here. That's why I was a little bit late coming down here. I just looked through it, and it is really, really good on what it does and puts forward all of our financial information in a much easier way for people to understand, in a much smaller way, including they have the seal with all the dates and how the different forms of government change, so why the dates are important on here. So I thought it was an incredibly good book, and I know I'll work with Amy Miller. I was trying to get Amy Lavoie on the way down here to see if I can get you a couple, but I'll make sure I have some for every member of the press next week, because I thought they were really, really good to help you understand and digest what our budget is and how we do it and where we put everything. So I thought it's a great idea. It came from an intern a couple of years ago, and we've just continued to do it. But it really is in a very succinct way, lets you see everything that we're doing in our budget, and a lot of the questions people ask all the time really could be answered in this little booklet. So it is nice. Thank you. We'll see you next week.